think there's a view certainly within our company at least that immersive tools are presentation tools. You do all the work, and then you put it into VR, and then you show people. Whereas actually, I can say very clearly, we use the tools 10 times as frequently. It's almost because it's kind of game-like. I'd be really interested to see how AI could create environments. We need to drive these virtual vehicles in virtual environments, and we don't really want to spend time and energy and effort in creating virtual environments in which to drive. So if AI were able to create those virtual environments, it's fun, isn't it? And it's a nice part of the job to enjoy these kind of game-like situations.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Immersive Futures podcast, and I'm your host, Martin Makinson. In today's episode, we'll look at how immersive technology is rapidly transforming the way cars are designed. From concept to reality, technologies like AR, VR, AI, and real-time visualization are pushing boundaries like never before. In today's episode, I'm joined by David Blakemore, an expert in automotive innovation, to explore how these tools are shaping the future of design and engineering. David has led groundbreaking concept development at Bentley Motors for many years, working at the intersection of advanced design and technology. We'll talk about the evolution of immersive workflows, the role of AI in automotive design, and a host of other subjects. So without further ado, let's get started. So David, welcome to the Immersive Futures podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me today.
Good to be here.
At first, I kind of just wanted to begin, I guess, about, talking about your background, really. I mean, you've obviously kind of worked in automotive innovation for many years. I mean, looking back, what's the kind of biggest way immersive technology has changed how cars are designed?
I think the most impact that I've seen through immersive technology is in the cockpit development. So obviously, that's quite a big area of focus for Bentleys, whether it's a driving focus cockpit or a more luxurious cockpit. But we've gone from having very processes that really focused around the physical build of early models to a very, very digital process where we're able to iterate, to create multiple iterations in the space of, hours, rather than the, let's say, the discrete iterations of, design something, build a model, assess it, change it, which used to take us weeks. So we're now in a position where we're able to create layouts for cockpits, to develop designs, to look at UI, UX, and also do that in the context of a kind of driven simulated experience in VR. So it's much more sophisticated and much more real, I would say, in spite of it being, a digital technology approach. Quite game changing, I think.
How long, it just sounds of interest. I mean, how much more time would you say saved as a result of them? Kind of, I guess, like you say, versus the old way of doing it, where you have to, have to build clay models and that sort of thing. I mean, how much time, would you say?
I think it's
saved?
It's a combination of saving time, but also a number of iterations. So in the past, it might take us, several weeks to design and build a model and to assess it. And that was one iteration, or you'd build multiple models, and that would be two iterations. So that might take, 6 to 8 weeks to do a couple of iterations. And now, actually, with the tools that we've got, we can do 5 iterations in an afternoon. And actually, what it means is that, the quality of the concept, the technical concept, the quality of the design, the integration of UI, UX experiences very early on in the process, and the ability to kind of drive it in a simulated drive experience, all take place kind of at once, which has been game changing for us.
I mean, it must be amazing now, I guess, versus then. If you had to kind of, they used to kind of clay models and things and waiting 6 weeks to kind of almost see, what it looked like, to then be like, oh, it's not quite right. But and then have to wait another 6 weeks where, to be able to kind of have that rapid acceleration.
Not just the clay models either. You had clay models for the aesthetic, you have box for the ergonomics, you have kind of UI, UX models for interaction. So multiple models all being built concurrently. And then you've kind of got to go from one to look at the design, to another to look at the ergonomics, to another to look at the screen technology and the interaction. So the ability to consolidate that all into VR is amazing, actually.
Yeah. I mean, was there one kind of specific moment, I guess, where, kind of immersive technology completely changed how you thought about car design?
I think we did have, again, so referring back to the cockpit, we did have a moment a few years ago where we were working on the GT, so today's GT, and we had this the design team had this idea of this Bentley rotating screen, which is very popular with our customers. It's a kind of
Yeah.
it's a rotating screen that has one face which is just wood, another face with analog dials on it, and another face with a touch screen. Um, and at the time, I think we were all sort of taking a bit of a gulp and then thinking, well, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do a proof of concept and understand how we might use this and how the customers might benefit? And this was at the time when we were just doing some pioneering work with VR, actually with a great, a large 3D back projected power wall. So rather than head-mounted uh, solutions, and we actually sort of pioneered this idea using VR. So answering all the questions about, okay, what's the kinematic for the rotation look like? How does it need to operate? When do you want to see the wooden screen? When do you want to see the touch screen? When do you want to see the analog dials? What are the circumstances? What's the use case in which you want to have these different experiences? And we piloted all of that in VR, and it was really successful. It really helped us to think in what we would call now more of a systems engineering way in terms of, okay, what are the
Sure.
requirements? What are the use cases? How do we want to interact with this? Um, and before we were even talking about systems engineering at Bentley, we had been working in that way, which I think was really powerful. And I think we all realized at that time, wow, actually, this is really good. This is
Mhm.
amazing. We're doing something really unique here. And I think that it's interesting because you get a lot of feedback from customers on the feature in the car, and they absolutely love it. But the story behind it is also quite interesting in terms of
Yeah,
pioneering methods to develop.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So how long did it actually take then, I guess, to kind of build the VR prototype of that then?
So, I mean that could be measured in weeks.
Right.
Just pulling data together, animating it in VR, assessing it, validating it, trying to build in some of the digital content and the HMI into the screens and evaluate how they might be best used. Um, it was um, it was an interesting exercise because at a sketch level, everyone was very excited about it. But at a user level, it was like, well, hang on, what am I going to do with it? I know it's cool and exciting, but how am I going to use it?
Yeah.
And I think we spent a lot of time figuring that out as well um, during that program.
That's amazing. Yeah. I mean, kind of based on your experience, what's something that I guess people in the industry, kind of misunderstand about how immersive tools are used in automotive design?
I think there's a view certainly within our company at least that immersive tools are presentation tools. You do all the work, and then you put it into VR, and then you show people. Whereas actually, I can say very clearly, we use the tools 10 times as frequently at a working level than at a presentation level. So they really are part of the development
Wow.
process. And there has been a huge engagement across the business in using these tools and um, in appreciating what it is they can do for you. But there does still seem to be a view that actually all the real work is done somehow physically and in a back room that no one sees. But not the case these days.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, right now, where is immersive tech kind of actually saving the most time in automotive design?
So one of the things I guess that's unseen as well is in kind of the benchmark world. So before you've even decided what your product is, you have a look at all the competitors and you're trying to pitch your product in terms of what it needs to be.
Yeah.
And what we do a lot now is you can imagine with the competitors that we have to get hold of cars. We buy them or we rent them or lease them, and then we in historically we've lined all these cars up in a huge warehouse and we've gone from one to the next and tried to build a picture of what each car is about and how we want to pitch our product. Whereas now when we scan these cars, we can immerse ourselves in the data in 3D, in VR, and without moving, I can sit in, you know, each of the competitors immediately which builds, in my
Amazing.
mind, a really clear picture of what the competition's doing and how we need to be different and unique and what our USPs might be. So this is saving us a lot of time and a lot of money. Um, I think in terms of also building our understanding of our own portfolio. So we have a setup where I can configure a seating buck to anything from a Lamborghini Huracan all the way up to a high riding SUV.
Yeah.
And we can do that from a tablet, so we can configure the steering column, the seat positions, both front and rear, all the main physical touch points, and then we can bring the data in. So actually, rapidly, you can experience the full portfolio of cars that you have today in data, and the full portfolio of cars that you want for tomorrow as well.
Amazing.
And you can do
Yeah.
that all from the luxury of one seat position, which is amazing. So you're not having to climb out of a car, go walk across a room, get in another one, get out again, trying to remember what it was that you did before. I mean, this has been really powerful actually for us, I think. And it's
It must be
somehow
amazing.
separate from
Yeah,
design in that it's more about product strategy actually in the portfolio.
sure.
Yeah,
I mean, it must be, like you say, I mean, such a huge time saving if you can kind of almost just, I guess, kind of sit in one car seat and then almost get, kind of a push of a button being a, yeah, kind of Lamborghini versus a Rolls Royce versus a, kind of whatever, luxury car brand. And, yeah, to kind of, yeah, to kind of say, keep getting to know, like, yeah, it
absolutely.
must be
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah.
and you get that. The car comes to you rather than you having to to go to it. You just from the fixed seat position, you get to experience all these cars. And in terms of building up an understanding of the competitor set,
Set.
it's really valuable. You get immersed in it very quickly.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, kind of, what's been the hardest part of integrating real time, visualization, VR, AR into traditional workflows?
I think the hardest part of integrating it has been I mean it's not the sexy bit, the correlation. So for example, it's very easy to go out and buy some kit and plug it in and use it from day one. But actually,
Mm.
if you want to use it as a decision making tool, you've got to build trust with the stakeholders and the decision makers. You've got to get them to appreciate that the tool is effective and they will make lasting decisions on the basis of what they experience. So we've spent a lot of time actually with every tool set that we've brought in, um, making sure that the perception of the tool is aligned to reality. That can be perception of space, material quality, light. It can be perception of how you interact with devices. It can be to do with the realism of cognitive load when in a simulated driving condition and how it affects your ability to interact with the car. So there's lots of things we're working on to draw those correlations and really build that confidence amongst our decision makers.
Yeah, it's amazing. So, I mean, I guess everybody talks about the benefits of kind of immersive tech and how fantastic it is. But I mean, again, kind of based on your experience, sorry, what are the kind of limitations or challenges of immersive tools that doesn't get enough attention?
I mean, that's one of them. The correlation thought, I think, when people don't want to hit, they just want to use the kit. They just want to get it, and it's all because it's kind of game like. Um, it's fun, isn't it? And it's a nice part of the
Yes.
job to enjoy these kind of game like situations. But actually, if you're talking about a product decision that could cost you millions, it's you've got to take a deep in, take a breath, and make sure that what you're experiencing is what you're actually going to experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess it'd be kind of rude not to talk about AI because, given the fact of the impact that it's kind of having on every single industry at the moment. I mean, automotive is obviously no exception to that. I mean, where is AI kind of useful today in design and engineering, and where is it more hype than reality?
I think with AI, there's a great opportunity. I mean, AI is great, I guess, from an engineering point of view, from like a let's say an objective measures perspective. So, for example,
Mm.
um, much of what we do to define the architecture of a car is numbers driven. There's targets for spaciousness and headroom, and there's dimensional targets throughout the car for proportions and so on. And what AI can do is draw on a database of values very quickly. And actually, there's an opportunity for AI to actually tell you what the proportions for your car should be from a numbers perspective. Of course, that doesn't really take into account the design elements. And I think that more creative side, there's also opportunity there for AI. I think we see how AI is used in advertising and in marketing and in the very early synthesis of ideas, whether it be a graphic or a slogan or a
Yeah.
soundbite. And actually, provided that you can create the right inputs into I think it is able to generate ideas, um, both in terms of words, in terms of numbers, in terms of visuals, very quickly. And that's a shortcut to the answer. It's not the answer, but it helps you
Yes.
rapidly go through some scenarios at a rate that from a human perspective, you could never accomplish in the same time. So I think, it's a mix of both those sort of objective and creative approaches that I think AI can really help us with. I also think that a kind of we now see these sort of uh, AI glasses now that you can get. Actually, they process what it is that you're seeing, and they give you feedback on the basis of the questions you ask about what you're seeing. I could see an interesting crossover from consumer products into that as a development tool for automotive design as well in the future.
Yeah. Are we at a point where AI can assist with design creativity, or does human experience or expertise, sorry, still lead the way on that one?
I think it's always going to be my personal view is it's always going to be driven by sort of human instincts.
Yeah.
I think with AI, you can get a fast start, can't you? You can look at some ideas very quickly through AI, but I still think that the interpretation and the finessing of those ideas needs to have a human side to it for sure.
Yeah.
But it's a really interesting
Right.
technology.
Yeah. I mean, based on the experimentation that I guess you kind of done with it from a design point of view, how close is it now to designing, a luxury car? you know, is it at that level, or is it still kind of quite quirky?
I
Because I
think
know in certain
we'd probably
sectors,
have to refer to some of our, specialist designers within
fair
regards to
enough,
that. But I'm very skeptical at the moment about its ability
fair enough,
to.
fair enough.
I don't think our designers need worry for their jobs just yet.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll be happy about that as well. Um, what's one kind of AI innovation that's still flying under the radar, but you think would be a game changer for automotive?
I think it's probably more. I'd be really interested to see how AI could create environments. Part of the challenge that we have is, um, clearly we our intellectual property is the vehicles, but actually,
Yeah.
we need to drive these virtual vehicles in virtual environments, and we don't really want to spend time and energy and effort in creating virtual environments in which to drive. So if AI were able to create those virtual environments that broadly respected the rules of the road, in terms of how the roads are laid out, but created let's say um, a realistic experience in which to drive in a virtual way in a virtual environment, I think that would be a real game changer for car companies. To know that they were developing a vehicle using a tool um, that would create immersive driving experiences without spending all the time and energy and effort in kind of designing the architecture of the landscape in which you're driving. I think that
Sure.
would be amazing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, because that's the thing, isn't it? Because if it can, because obviously the amount of data it can process, obviously, is so
Yeah.
vast, isn't it? I think it can completely, mimic, kind of most, well, I guess kind of pretty much any kind of driving
Yeah.
scenario and
Well,
things like that, can't it?
yeah.
So, I think it'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess kind of, the future of automotive experiences. I mean, it's not just about designing cars. I mean, immersive tech is kind of reshaping how we experience them. How do you kind of see the technology changing the way that people interact with the vehicles in the next decade?
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. Um, I mean, I'd answer this in two ways, really. I think there's a change of emphasis in what design and development teams focus on. You know, I guess for a long time it's been a strong focus on design, the aesthetic, a strong focus on the features within the vehicle. I think now, certainly, we're shifting more towards the definition of experiences that you can have with the car, inside the car and outside the car. And I know that we can use VR to model those experiences without having to build a car. So one of the things that's very important to us is this idea of arriving in style. Um,
Yeah.
and so if you're a VIP arriving at a very special event, you want to know that when you get out of the car, everything is just right. You're arriving in style. Um, and actually, the experience of doing that in the automotive world at the moment, it isn't that great. You know, cars are broadly similar. They have hinged doors that you have to sort of climb out through a relatively small aperture, and you know, try and do that with grace and elegance. And actually, what we're really interested in is creating an experience where that is somehow a lot easier. It's a lot easier to be graceful. It's a lot easier to arrive feeling better than when you left. Um,
Yeah.
about maybe accepting that you want to look your best, and maybe there's some cameras going to be on you, and potentially um the car is an enabler for that experience. And actually, if we can build those experiences in VR before we've built a car, and actually explore those experiences with our customers and say, look, is this the kind of thing that would help you, that you'd like to have in your car? And then we can set that experience as a target for the vehicle, for our design teams and our engineering teams to develop around, a solution around, and get that experience into production in a vehicle. So that's one dimension of it that I'm really interested in. And I think at the moment it's underexploited.
Yeah.
At the moment, we have these kind of experiences when we've built a prototype, and it's too late to change it by then.
Yeah.
So if you can push that experience definition right up the front of vehicle definition, then I think you've got a great opportunity there. I think the other one is the application of immersive technologies in the car for the customer. And I
Yeah.
can imagine a situation where, we're already seeing it, aren't we? Immersive head-up display units, maybe the use of kind of immersive gaming for passengers. I think there's lots of immersive technologies that can augment the normal experience of being either the driver or the passenger in a vehicle. And I think those technologies are emerging rapidly. I think one of the technologies that quite excites me is holographic technology, because actually it's one thing to put a headset on to immerse yourself in a vehicle design because it's your job. It's another thing to put a headset on to somehow have an experience as a customer. And I think if you could find a way to do that without the headset, I think that would be game changing. So looking at some of the holographic technologies that are emerging at the moment, I think that's something that's on its way, and I'm keen to see how that develops.
I mean, on that note, I mean, kind of coming back to the point that you mentioned before about the kind of arriving in style kind of aspect. I mean, do you think that, I guess there'd be a reticence with a Bentley customer to put a VR headset on, for argument's sake, if they were going to be driving somewhere and then, if they were kind of arriving in style and they've got kind of like the flat line down the middle of the head where the head strap's been and things like that. I mean, do you think then, I guess, the kind of, yeah, like you say, the better route is probably more the holographic experience where they're not then having to put something on their head?
I think it's not the best look, is it? And I think it's interesting because we've got a setup now where we can have multi-user immersive experiences, so multiple people with headsets on. We can also have multi-user remote headsets whereby you've got someone over one of our group companies, Porsche or whatever, or someone at Bentley, immersed together side by side, but in different countries. And I think that's a really interesting thing in terms of collaborative work, um, and sharing of ideas, and that's actually been complemented by, I would say, this idea of mixed reality. So a
Yeah.
lot of the work we do now, we use a mixed reality headset, so you can see the other people in the room, so you can continue to engage in a dialogue, um, and you can see the data in front of you, and you can see some of the physical elements that you choose to experience physically. And that mixed reality is becoming quite powerful. And I think the most powerful thing with our decision makers is, when they put the headset on, they don't feel completely disengaged from the audience. They're still able to
Sure.
look around the room at the people that they're talking to and have a discussion about the decision they're trying to make, rather than feeling kind of, separate and immersed and isolated in digital data. So that's
Totally.
a big learning point for us, I think.
Yeah. I mean, how do you bridge the gap between kind of cutting edge AR interfaces and kind of real world usability when it comes to, I know you kind of mentioned it earlier, but I mean, I guess the kind of vehicle cockpit. Yeah, kind of what should be, how do you go about that?
So yeah, there's a bit on correlation, isn't there? There's a bit on making sure that the tools that you're using really reflect the situation that you're in. I think
Mm.
that's the main point. I think that's the biggest challenge.
Yeah. I mean, 10 years from now, I mean, do you think designers will still be kind of sketching, by hand, or can you see it being kind of fully immersive? Or sorry, will immersive tools fully take over the design process, do you think?
I think it's probably up to the individual to some extent. I mean, these are all just tools, aren't they? So you can
Yeah.
have a toolkit. You can choose the tool that you want for the specific situation that you're trying to deal with. Um, I don't think it will ever fully replace sketching as a tool, whether it's sketching with pen and paper or digital sketching. But I do see that maybe that period of time will shorten right down. Um,
Yeah.
and the idea of going into 3D much quicker. Not staying on the page for too long, but coming into 3D, and the ability to work in a way that you never really tear anything up. You just develop it, um, and you actually. I mean, one of the things that's quite interesting from a, let's say, a fundamental layout point of view is we offer people the opportunity to immerse themselves in VR and place the things that they're going to interact with where they want them. Um,
Yes.
so, for example, okay, if you want to look at a certain screen or we want to interact with a device, put it where you want it. You tell us where
Mm.
you want to put it, and then we consult with enough people and we build a picture about where people would like these things to be. And actually, there's a lot of what we do in terms of laying out the cockpit. Um, that is down to kind of co-creation with individuals, where we say, look,
Sure.
okay, we've put it here. Where would you like it? Where would it be better for you? And I think that's really powerful. And I think it would be really fascinating to do that with customers as well, and really give them the ability to kind of um, co-create with us. I think that would be fascinating.
Do you think it's kind of, like you say, I mean, do you think I guess, could you see a point, do you think, where the kind of customers, I guess, where the customers basically can collaborate on the kind of design process using immersive technology?
I think so. I think one of the challenges we've got, especially in the early phases, is around innovation. So, of course, we love to innovate. We want to make sure that our innovations are targeted around our customers' needs, um,
Yeah.
and not just innovation for its own sake, which you see more and more. I would say to a certain extent in China. So we need to make sure that where we have innovation, it really improves the customer experience. And one of the challenges there is that we have multiple innovations in a vehicle in the early phases. Um, but of course, we can't afford to do all of them. So we have to kind of whittle them
Yeah.
down. Um, and in that very early phase, it would be great to have a virtual experience of an innovation, share that with a customer base and ask them, which of these innovations works best for you? What would you like to see? What would you really love to see in your car? Um, and in the way that we tend to run kind of customer clinics from a design style perspective with selected customers, um, it would be great to offer a kind of an experience um, clinic. How about this
Yeah.
experience? Is this an experience you'd like, or an innovation clinic? If we were offering you this technology that enabled these things, is that something you'd appreciate as a customer? So really broaden out that sort of that dialogue with the customer using VR tools. The message for us it's fantastic if we don't have to build anything because we don't have to spend hundreds of thousands of pounds on
Yeah.
models, but we can still have the same conversation with the customer, and they can still get that sense of, influencing the direction of the design and the concept and the development and the product, which I think is, I think really important to customers.
I guess to a great extent as well. I mean, I think it's a real, innovation in itself, isn't it? Like you say, if when it gets to that kind of, kind of concept stage, that, the customer then has that kind of input as well, that, with the design or final design, sorry, then it's, yeah, I mean, it's a real kind of giant leap forward, I guess, to, rather than designing something and anticipating.
Yeah.
And also I think that, the customer can visually see something, can't they? Rather than kind of almost explaining to them, that it will look like X, Y, Z. Then risk is,
Yeah.
they can obviously put it on and see it in 3D.
I also think customers could benefit from car companies being a little bit bolder. I mean, I look at, the number of vehicle concepts I've been involved in, the design and development of a Bentley, and let's be honest, um, the vast majority of them don't go to production. But actually,
Yeah.
that information, that data about the vehicle, that just dies. It goes into the kind of the history books for the company. And actually, it'd be great, wouldn't it, to maybe put some of those concepts that never made it to production out into the world as digital assets, maybe as part of gaming. You can imagine driving, the car that we didn't take to production, driving that in Forza or one of these
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
morning
yeah.
games,
Uh,
um,
yeah,
and
that'd be
offering the
amazing.
customer, a different experience, but still a Bentley branded experience, but in a very different way, and really using those digital assets that we're not going to lay down tools for, but they were still
Yeah.
brilliant, cool ideas. Um, so yeah, I
I mean,
think
there
more
must
of
be
that.
some
Yeah,
amazing kind of concepts as well. Back in the kind of trade trades, I guess in the kind of 60s and 70s and what have you. I mean, there must be some
yeah,
absolutely phenomenal kind of designs
yeah.
that never, like you say, kind of never saw the light of day in production.
Yeah, and wouldn't it be cool? We've got the Bentley Blow, we've got these various sort of heritage Bentleys that we have data for now, reverse
Yeah.
engineered from original drawings from the 30s, 40s, 50s. That data could be available in gaming. I mean, imagine that. That would be cool.
An idea there,
Yeah,
David. There you
yeah,
go.
definitely.
Something to pitch to the board next week.
Absolutely.
I mean, what have you kind of, what's been the most exciting tool you've used recently?
Well, I guess one of the things I'm really quite excited about is this motion capture. So customer motion capture. So there's a number of ways of doing this, and most of the things that we've seen out have been, you know, the user is required to wear various tracking devices, full body tracking suit, and that's got limited appeal, if I'm honest. But actually,
Yeah.
some innovations whereby you can capture human movement without all the tracking devices. It's technology from the film industry that could be redeployed in the car industry, really to capture, how people behave in their vehicles, how they behave when they approach the car, when they get in, um, what it is they need to do to achieve comfort on long and short journeys, how that is different, and actually capturing human movement, particularly across the whole demographic range from the smallest to the largest. Um, and using that information to literally design around our customers. Um, I think that's really powerful, and I think that's a really interesting area of future opportunity.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. If you could kind of fix one thing about the current immersive design tools that are on the market, what would that be? Or is there any common threads there?
I think it probably is the cumbersome headset geometry. Is
Yeah.
it's yeah, it remains a bit of a barrier. Um, I think maybe the other thing is the driving experience. I think as an OEM, one of the things that we do, I think, reasonably well is we find immersive technologies and we join them together in unique ways to create a tool that helps us. Um, I think the convergence of kind of let's say some of the static immersive tools that are used around the development of a design or a concept or a layout or ergonomics hasn't yet fused with the dynamic elements about the driving experience. And I think there's quite a long way to go to bring those two elements together, to really have a
Yeah.
proper immersive driving experience in VR. and really drive the design, not just of the a static experience, but a dynamic driving experience. I think
Yeah.
would be really powerful.
Yeah, that would be amazing. What's, I mean, kind of based on your experience so far, I mean, what's something about designing cars that, sorry, designing cars with immersive tech that would surprise most people?
Hmm. Yeah, I think it comes back to this point around yeah, not so much the sexy bit, but the kind of the the portfolio planning. When you literally haven't got a design, um, but you're trying to work out what the building blocks of the car are. What's the feature that's in the car? What do you want to offer the customer?
Yeah.
And those really big decisions about content. We have a lot of those decisions made using VR. So we say, well, look, actually, if we wanted to produce a car to meet certain requirements, actually, we could take some of the systems we use already today. We can take
Yeah.
some systems from elsewhere, from our innovation hopper. We can take some systems from our other brands, Lamborghini or Porsche, whatever. We can combine that in a unique way, and then we can offer that as a set of very credible ideas. And then most importantly for our business is cost it. Say, well, okay, if we were going to do that, how much would it cost? And I think
Yeah.
that piece, I think, would probably surprise most people, and that we do that very early on. We use VR tools to do that, and that's actually prior to the design phase, really, which is it's really scoping the content of a vehicle, its
Yeah.
positioning, and the feature it might include. Um, before you really started designing it. Um,
When would you generally tend to start then? So if you're kind of coming up with the concepts of a new car rather than the kind of look like a new iteration, sorry, of an existing model, if you're starting with a clean slate, and let's say you're using kind of immersive technology like VR, where would be the first place that you'd kind of start with that?
so what we
Is it
do,
normally the exterior or the interior? Kind of, what's the kind of
I guess there's a whole period of pre-development before interior and exterior design where you're talking about platforms actually.
right? Okay.
So actually one of the things that we do is we develop with our other group brands platform solutions, and as you can imagine, a platform's not a very exciting place to be, is it, from a customer perspective? They don't really care. So we have a process whereby we're developing a platform around some known requirements. We have to dress it in a kind of a hat, an early pre-development design hat, in order to bring it to
Yeah.
life, to make it relatable, I suppose. And actually, we have a very interesting sort of pre-development phase where we might be developing a number of vehicles on a platform. We might be sharing that platform development with another brand. They're also developing very early concepts and designs. Um, and this can happen prior to a vehicle program, by maybe 2 years in advance. Um, and then the idea being that by the time you get to do the full program, you're already clear on what your platform is, what your platform strategy is, who you're shooting the
Yeah.
platform with, how the platform's going to perform. You know that you can afford it, and you start the process of designing the car, the hat of the car, and the experiences you're going to have from a really solid baseline.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably another area that probably most people don't see, and are less aware of in terms of the design process and um, the kind of strategy process for developing vehicles and platforms.
Amazing. What industry from so what industry outside of automotive, from what you've seen, is using immersive tech in a way that car companies should learn from?
Oh, this is a really interesting question, actually. One of the things I've seen some information on is how perfume companies use immersive tech to experience how light interacts with glass in their perfume bottles, which of course
Okay.
an incredible sort of finite application of immersive technology. And I think we see it with the way that light um, is used as, let's say, another material in our headlights. We have this sort of cut glass approach to our headlights, which is very luxury and very unique. Um, so I think we could do more of that in VR. I think we could also take a note from architecture in the way that natural light and artificial light are so critical in the development of buildings. And
Yeah.
I still see that there's something of a gap there in the way we consider light in vehicles, and how we manage light through glazing in the vehicle, how we augment light with artificial light within the car. I still think there's an enormous opportunity from a design perspective and technology perspective to innovate in that space and to develop those innovations using VR rather than, expensive prototyping methods.
Yeah, totally. And I guess kind of finally, what's one piece of advice I should say that for someone looking to use immersive technology in automotive design that you could give?
I think what I've learned is again, it's not really the sexy bit, but stakeholder management. If you bring a new tool into the business, you really have to pilot it very well. You have to engage with all your stakeholders. You have to address any of the challenges that they raise, any resistance to using the tool, any challenges in terms of how the perception of the digital isn't matching the reality. And you have to knock over those questions one by one, and you have to gradually widen your circle of stakeholders, because actually what you really want is a group of evangelists just saying, wow, what a brilliant tool this is. Can we use it more? And I think when you reach that point, you've won. I think you've really landed the tool. You can fundamentally embed the tool into your processes, and we're very keen on doing that, Bentley. But there's a little bit of patience, a little bit of kind of um, you know selling, but with evidence of success to your stakeholders and your decision makers, and really getting them on board on that journey.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, David, thank you very much. It's been a fascinating conversation,
Yeah,
and
good to meet you.
thank you very much for sharing your insights into immersive tech within automotive. Um, Finally, kind of where can our audience find you on and learn more about the work that you're doing at Bentley Automotive?
So yeah, I'm the head of concepts at Bentley. So I'm on LinkedIn, various social media applications. So yeah, feel free to get in touch.
Perfect. And thanks very much for everyone for listening. And don't forget to subscribe to the Immersive Futures podcast. And I'll see you next time. Thank you very much. Thank you,
Martin,
David.
cheers.
Thank you. Bye bye.